In class, students are working on an activity in which we have fractions reviewed leveled. And students need to complete at least 3 levels. Those who start on level 1 must complete at least through level 5. So if some students have started on level 4 and they can do level 4, 5, and 6 to get credit. But those who start on level 1 need to get through level 5 because level 5 is the type of work that's going to be on the test that will be on Friday. Down here, you can see what needs to be done. There's a lot of practice that can be done, but this will be what's graded. Let's go ahead and get started. Right here, I'm going to go ahead and expand this a little bit so we can see. We're going to skip those notes at the top. So we've got these problems, and we just need to find common denominators and then analyze it. So here we have 1/3 plus 1/6. Well, our denominators aren't the same, and so what we need to do is find common denominators. It already gives it to us. So let's take our thirds, and we list the multiples, 3, 6, 9, and we take our 6, and we list the multiples, 6. Well, I see a common denominator already, and so that's 6. So that means my 6's, I just multiply times 1 because I only listed one thing. 6 times 1 gave me 6 already, and 1 times 1 gave me 1. And then here, I did 3 times 2 because that's 1, 2. And so 1 times 2 and 3 times 2. So 1 times 2 gives me 2. 3 times 2 gives me 6. Now I can add these. 2 6 plus 1 6 is 3 6, which is also equal to 1/2 if you want to simplify it. Both of these are correct solutions. Next question, we have 4 and 12 as a denominator. Those are not common, so I'm going to list my multiples, 4, 8, 12, and then 12. And so our multiples, common denominators is 12. So I take 12 and I did 4 times 1, 2, 3. This is times 3. This is times 3. And so 1 times 3 gives me 3. 4 times 3 gives me 12. 3 twelfths plus 5 twelfths gives me 8 twelfths. Question 3, 2/5 plus 4/15. Well, I take my 5s and I do 5, 10, 15. Well, that's 15, so this is just my 1/15. That's my common denominator because it's the first number that's in both lists. So I take 5 times 1, 2, 3. So this is 5 times 3. And I do the same thing on the bottom as I do on the top, so times 3. And then 4 times 1, 15 times 1. But that's already done for us. 2 times 3 gives me 3. 5 times 3 is 15. And I can add 4/15 plus 3/15 gives me 7/15. Here my denominators are 2 and 8. So I'm going to list my 2's, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And I'm going to list my 8's, 8, 16. But I don't need to go farther because I have 8 here and 8 here. My 2's I multiply times 1, 2, 3, 4. So 2 times 4 and 1 times 4 gives me a common denominator of 2 times 4 is 8. 1 times 4 gives me 4. And then here, this doesn't change because my denominator is already where it's supposed to be. 4 8s plus 3 8s gives me 7 8s. And this is my final solution. What was expected was to have 4 done from section 1. And so we'll go ahead and go on to the next section. The next section, you are supposed to work on, Next section, you were supposed to work on level 2, had picking 5 problems. So let's go ahead and expand this and we can do those 5 problems. So looking at question number 7, and then looking at we'll do 7, 13, 8, 14, and 9. I'll go ahead and expand this some more. All right, here we go. Looking at question number 7 first, we have 1/2 plus 1/4. And so we can list our multiples, 2, 4. Well, I see already that I have 4, so then I would just have 4 here. So those are my multiples. So my 1/2 needs to go times 2 times 2. So 1 times 2, I like to put it underneath. 1 times 2 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. My 4ths stays the same because it's just times 1. So if you want to do times 1 you can, but you don't have to because it just stays the same, 1/4. And this is subtraction. So we have 2/4 minus 1/4 gives me 1/4 as my answer. Next question, we have 2/3 and 2/5. And so here, if I have 2/3 and 2/5, I'm going to list my thirds, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Okay, I know 15 is a multiple of 5, so let's stop there. Then I have 5, 10, 15. So I circle my 15. So that tells me I take the 3's times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is times 5, and that dot means multiply. This is times 5. 2 times 5 gives me 10. 3 times 5 gives me 15. Subtract. My 5's I multiplied times 10 because my denominator was 5 here. I did times 1, 2, 3. So this is times 3. This is times 3. 2 times 3 is 6. 5 times 3 is 15. I now have common denominators, so I subtract. 10 fifteenths minus 6 fifteenths gives me 4 fifteenths. And that's my answer. Let's look at question number 8. We have 3/5 minus 2/15, I think. 3/5 minus 2/15. And so we have our 5's, 5, 10, 15, and then our 15's. Well, that's pretty easy. So here we're going to multiply 5 times 1, 2, 3. So this is times 3. This is times 3. 3 times 3 is 9. 5 times 3 is 15. And that's minus, it's the same, so we just keep it the same, 2/15. And that's going to be equal to 9 minus 2 is, let me erase this really quickly. 9 minus 2 is going to be 7/15. Look at question 14. We have 8ths and we have thirds. So let's list my thirds. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27. Let's stop there. And then I have 8, 16, 24. Okay, there's a 24. And there's a 24, so I'm going to stop. So my 8's I did times 1, 2, 3. So my 8's multiply times 3. And then my thirds multiply times, my 3 8's both multiply times 3. So 3 times 3 gives me 9, and 8 times 3 gives me 24. Minus my thirds, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is times 8. And then 3 times 8. So 3 times 8 gives me 24 as my denominator, and 1 times 8 gives me 8 as my numerator. When I subtract these, I get with 1 over 24. Last one, number 9, we have 3/4 minus 1/6. And so I have my fourths, 4, 8, 12, 16, but I'm pretty sure 6 goes into 12. 6's, 6, 12. So that works. So it's 12 is my least common denominator. So my fourths, I multiply times 1, 2, 3. So this is times 3 times 3. 3 times 3 gives me 9. 4 times 3 gives me 12. Then my sixth, I multiply times 1, 2. So this is times 2. This is times 2. 1 times 2 gives me 2. 6 times 2 gives me 12. And then 9/12 minus 2/12 gives me 7/12. That's 5 questions from level 2. Let's move on to level 3. This is level 3. It's word problems. Let's go ahead and expand it a little bit so we can see better. So you needed to do 4 in a row. So I am going to go ahead and go 4 across as I go through. Well, let's actually do 4 down. We'll go ahead and work on 4 down. So starting at the top and then working down towards the bottom, we're going to do these 4 right here. So let's look. You give 1/3 of a pan of brownies to Shania. That's not what I want to do. 1/3 of a pan of brownies to Shania. And 1/6 of a pan of brownies to Tiana. How much of the pan did you give away? So here I've got a pan of brownies, and I give 1/3 of it to Shania, and then 1/6 of it to Tiana. And so how much total have I given away? So we're going to add these together. So I have 1/3 plus 1/6. Well, as I look at this, I'm going to list it. 3, 6. Well, 3 goes into that. So I do times 2, times 2. And this is going to give me 1 times 2 gives me 2. 3 times 2 gives me 6 plus 1/6. And that gives me 3/6, which is half when I simplify. So you could have an answer of 3/6 or 1/2. Next problem. Shanti has 7 out of 10 of a bag of Takis. She gives 1/3 of the Takis to Diamond. How much of the bag does she have left? So she starts with 7/10 of a bag of Takis. Then she gives 1/3 of the bag away to Diamond. So we're giving it away, so it's going to subtract 1/3. So I can list my multiples. I've got 10, 20, 30. And then I list my 3s. 3, well, I don't really want to list all of them. I just know that 3 times 10 gives me 30. And so my common denominator is 30. So 10 times 3 gives me 30, and 7 times 3 gives me 21. So that's going to be 21 over 30. Minus, here we did times 10, because 3 times 10 is 30, and 1 times 10 gives me 10 over 30. So I get 21/30 minus 10/30 will be equal to 11/30, and that's my answer. Let's do the next one. Destiny is driving her car. Scary, everyone. Look out. She drives 4/9 of a mile on Monday and 2/5 of a mile on Friday. How much did Destiny drive that week? So in total, we're going to be adding these. So I've got 4/9 plus 2/5. So let's list our multiples. 9, 18, 27, 36, 45. Well, I know 45 is a multiple of 5 because it ends in 5. Then I do 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45. Okay, we're good. So I circle my 45. So let's list. We did 9 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is times 5. This is times 5. 4 times 5 is 20. 9 times 5 is 45. Then we did 5 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This was times 9. This is times 9. 2 times 9 is 18. 5 times 9 is 45. We subtract, or we add them. 20 plus 18 is going to be 38 out of 45. And that is my final answer. Next problem. On average, Amari makes 3/5 of his base basketball shots. Eric makes 1/3 of his. How many more baskets does Amari usually make? So as a fraction of the shot. So we're going to subtract this because it's how many more. So it's trying to figure out the difference. So I have 3/5 minus 1/3. I'll list my 5s and my 3s. 5, 10, 15, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. So it's 15. So I've got 5 times 3, 1, 2, 3. 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9. 5 times 3 is 15. Minus 3 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is times 5. 3 times 5. 1 times 5 is 5. 3 times 5 is 15. So I have 9/15 minus 5/15 is equal to 4/15 of his basketball shots more than what Eric shoots. We've done 4 now, so we can move on to level 4. Level 4 is sort of a word problem mix. So it's going to be a little bit difficult to see, but we're going to go ahead and work through it. So let's expand it first off. Okay, so first one, it's called trail mix, adding and subtracting fractions with like and unlike denominators. So let's go ahead and look at the first couple problems. A says, how long did Raul practice his trumpet on Monday? So we read the problem. It says, Raul plays his trumpet in the school band. He tries to practice at least 4 days each week. The table shows his practice time for the week. So this is the table that shows his practice time, what the day is, and then the amount of hours. How long did Raul practice his trumpet on Monday and Tuesday? So I see Monday and I see Tuesday. And in total, I'm going to take 1/12 plus 1/6. This can simplify. I have 6, 12. So my common denominator is 12. So I do 6 times 2 times 2. So I get 1/12 plus 1 times 2 is 2. 6 times 2 is 12. 2/12 is equal to 3/12, which is also, if you simplify it, equal to 1/4, because 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 12 divided by 3 is 4. Go ahead and scroll down. Next question says, how long did Raul practice his trumpet on Wednesday and Thursday? Show your work. So we have Wednesday and Thursday. So I have 1/4 plus 1/3 is equal to, well, here we have fourths and thirds, so we'll do 4, 8, 12, 16, and then we go 3, 6, 9, 12. I see 12 here, so we don't have to keep going. So 4s, I did times 1, 2, 3, so this is times 3. And then 3s, I did times 1, 2, 3, 4, so this is times 4. So I'll have 1/3, 1 times 3 is 3. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 1 times 4 is 4. 3 times 4 is 12. And I get 3 plus 4 is 7/12 total for all 4 of these days. We go to the next question, and it says that Raul's music teacher recommends that he practice his trumpet at least 1 hour each week. As of Thursday, had Raul practiced his trumpet at least 1 hour? So we just looked, and we see that, we see over here in our previous problems that he practiced for 3/12 on the first 2 days and 7/12 on the next 2 days. So we can use those answers to solve this. So on the first 2 days, he practiced 3/12. And so we're going to write 3/12 because this was Monday plus Tuesday. And then on the second 2 days, this is Wednesday and Thursday, he practiced 7/12. So in all, he's practiced 10/12. So that's not enough. He needs a full hour, and 1 whole hour would be 12/12. So he has not gotten 12/12. He only has 10/12. So no, he has not practiced enough. Not enough. D asks, how much longer does Raul have to practice on Friday if he wants to follow his teacher's recommendations exactly? Show your work. Well, we know that 1 whole hour is 12/12. So if he already has 10/12, that's 12/12 minus 10/12 is equal to 2/12 left that he has to practice. And if you know, we know that 12 times 5 is equal to 60 for an hour. So this is like 10 more minutes that he needs to practice for that hour. Raul practiced his trumpet for 5/12 of an hour on Friday. How much longer did he practice than he needed? Well, he was supposed to practice 2/12, but he did 5/12, so I can just do 5/12 minus 2/12 is equal to 3/12 extra. And remember, this is equal to each 12th is 5 minutes out of an hour, so that would be 15 minutes. That's level 4 we just finished. Level 5 is essentially trying to get you to a point where you can where you can subtract fractions with borrowing. So that's what we're going to get started on and move forward. I'm going to just do 2 problems on each of these. It says, I know that you needed to do 3 problems from each section. I'm just going to do 2 and leave the rest to you to be able to figure it out. So looking at question number 26, we have 5 1/6 plus 3 1/4. Well, the easiest way for me to do this is I've got my 6s and I've got my 4s, so 6, 12, and then I know 4 goes into 12, so I go 4, 8, 12, and that's my denominator. So I have 5, and this is times 2, The fourth is times 3 because it's 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2. So 1 times 2 is 2. 6 times 2 is 12. And then I have 1 times 3, I have 3, and 1 times 3 is 3. 4 times 3 is 12. So now I can add my fractions and add my whole numbers. I can go ahead and do that in red here. That's my whole numbers. And so when I add these, I'm going to end up with a whole number. I'll end up with my whole 5 plus 3 is going to be 8. And my fractions is 2 twelfths plus 3 twelfths is 5 twelfths. So my answer is 8 and 5 twelfths. That's the whole answer. We'll do one more. Here we have 5s and 2s. I have 5, 10, 15. 2s, I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So that's the first one is 10. So this tells me that I'm going to do 5 times 2. This is times 2, times 2. And 2 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is times 5. This is times 5. Yes. So I have 1, 2 times 2 is 4. 5 times 2 is 10. And I have 4, and 1 times 5 is 5. 2 times 5 is 10. So I'm going to erase this so I can have some space to work. And so if I add these, I get my whole number. 1 plus 4 is equal to 5. And 4 plus 5 is 9. I'm going to go ahead and do 28 because it has a problem, something I'd like to show you. So we have 3 and 4 ninths plus 2 and 2 thirds. So I've got ninths and thirds. 3 times 3 gives me 9. 2 times 3 gives me 6. So I have 3 and 4 ninths plus 2 and 6 ninths. So as I look at this, I add 3 plus 2 gives me 5 wholes, and then 4 plus 6 gives me 10 ninths. Well, this is a problem because this is an improper fraction. But if I just take this section, that's going to be equal to 1 and 1 ninth. And then I have my 5 wholes over here. So now I have 1 and 1 ninth plus 5 is equal to 6 and 1 ninth. Is my whole answer. These problems, it's just the idea of borrowing. So essentially what I'm going to do is I've got this 2 and 4 sevenths, and I'm going to do it step by step for the first one, and the next two I'll just do quickly. So I've got 2 and 4 sevenths. Well, this 2, we've got to turn this into 1 in some type of sevenths. So we're just going to borrow. So 2 and 4 sevenths is the same as 1 plus 1 plus 4 sevenths. And then this is the same as 1 plus 7 sevenths plus 4 sevenths. And this is the same because 7 sevenths is the same as a whole, and 1 plus 1 is the same as 2. So then this is the same as 1 plus 7 sevenths plus 4 sevenths is 11 sevenths. So then my answer here is 1 and 11 sevenths. 2 and 4 sevenths is the exact same thing as 1 and 11 sevenths. So 1 and 11 sevenths. The short way to do this is simply to borrow. So I have 5 sixths. I want to change it to 0 and something sixths. So I borrow the 1. And then I like to add plus 6 sixths. 5 sixths plus 6 sixths gives me 11 sixths. Over here, same idea. I have 5 and 7 twelfths is going to be equal to 4 and some number of twelfths. Well, I like to borrow. I take away the 1 whole here. That becomes 4. And then I add the whole back in as twelfths. So 7 twelfths plus 12 twelfths gives me 19 twelfths. So here I'd have 4 and 19 twelfths. Done with that section. The next one, we're going to use that skill of borrowing to be able to subtract. So let's go ahead and look at these problems from 37 to 42. Look at question number 38. We have 5 and 1/2 minus 2 and 5 sixths. Well, I have 2, 4, 6, and then I have 6. So my denominator is 6. So this is times 3 times 3. So that gives me 5. 1 times 3 is 3. 2 times 3 is 6. Minus, I like to leave some space here, 2 and 5 sixths. Well, I can do 5 minus 2, but I can't do 3 minus 5. So I need to borrow. So I'm going to borrow a whole. This becomes 4. And remember, I add my whole back in here. Plus 6, 6. So now I have 4 and 9 sixths minus 2 and 5 sixths. Well, 4 and 9 6 minus 2 and 5 6. Now I can do 9 minus 5 gives me 4 6, and 4 minus 2 gives me 2. So my answer is 2 and 4 6. And this can simplify to 2 and 2/3. Let's do 2 more. Here we have 8s and 5s and 8s. And if we listed this out, we'd go 5, 10, 15, 20, and we end up at 40. And then we do our 8s, and we do 8, 16, and we end up at 40. Because one way, a shortcut you can do is just 5 times 8 is 40. So then I do 8 times 5, and 3 times 5. And then I do 5 times 8, and 4 times 8. So I have 6 and 15 40ths minus 3, 4 times 8 is 32 40ths. Well, that's an issue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to borrow, and I actually drew this a little bit too close, so let's erase this. I had 6 and 15 40ths. So if I borrow from the 6, I end up with 5. And if I add my 40 in here, plus 40 over 40, this ends up being 55. So now I have 55 minus 32. Well, 5 minus 2 gives me 3, and 5 minus 3 gives me 2, 23 40ths. And then 5 minus 3, this is 2 and 23 40ths. Next problem is the last one that I'll do. 3 goes into 6, so I can just multiply times 2, and then times 2 up here. So this is 7 and 1/6 minus 4, 2 times 2 is 4, 6. 4 and 4 6. So again, I have to borrow. So I'm going to borrow from the 7. This becomes a 6. And I add my whole back in, 6 over 6, because I can't just make the whole disappear. So then I have 6, 1 6 plus 6 6 is 7 6 minus 4 and 4 6 equals 7 6 minus 4 6 is going to be 3 6. And then 6 minus 4 is 2 and 2 6. That's my final solution. This could also be 2 and 1. At this point, you are done with level 5. Let's check out level 6. Level 6, I am not, well, I'll go ahead and do it. So write each mixed number as an improper fraction. This is a really easy thing to do. I'm just going to do one as an example, and you can do the next one. Same thing with the improper fractions here. So write each mixed number as an improper fraction. It says 3 and 1/5. We're trying to turn this into an improper fraction, which means I have a bigger number in the numerator and a smaller number in the denominator. Well, this basically is like I'm saying, okay, I have 3 and 1/5 is the same as having 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1/5. And that's the same as having 5/5 plus 5/5 plus 5/5 plus 1/5. So what I can do here is just take 5 plus 5 plus 5, that's 15 plus 1 is 16/5. So that's the long way of doing it. The short way of doing it is just saying, oh, instead of doing this repeated addition, I can just take my denominator, which is 7, and multiply times 2. So I'm on number 2 now. I could have just done 5 times 3 is 15, plus 1 gives me 16. So I can do that here. 7 times 2 is 14, so 14 sevenths plus 3 sevenths is equal to 17 sevenths. And that's my answer. The opposite is true here. We need to divide. So we think 3 goes into 7 how many times? So I go 3, 6, 9. I went too far. So that's 2 times. And I'm at 6, and I have 1 more I need to go. So I'm left with 1 remainder out of 3. Same thing here. 6, 12, 18, 24. Went too far. So that's 3 times. So I have 3. And if I count up from 18, I have 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So that's going to be 5. So there's 5 left over, 3 and 5 cents. Let's go ahead and scroll down. Here's some word problems that are going to go with this. Kiana's pediatrician measured her height at each yearly checkup. The table shows her height at different ages. So we're looking at, we have the age and we have her height. And it asks, how much did Kiana grow from from ages 1 to 2? Well, if we're looking at growth, we're trying to figure out how much do we add. We can do that by subtracting. So plus some number. And so we have 2 and 11/12 minus 2 and 1/2. Well, we know that we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So this is times 6, so this would be times 6 times 6. And so I have 2 and 11/12 minus 2, and instead of that, I'm going to cross these off. 1 times 6 gives me 6, and 2 times 6 gives me 12. So I have 11/12 minus 6/12 is equal to 5/12. So Kiana grew 5/12. Let's go ahead and look at the next one. B, if Kiana grew half of a foot from age 2 to 3, but the doctor didn't fill in the chart, what was her height at age 3? So we can go back. We know that her height before was 2 and 11/12, and she grew half of a foot. So we're going to add it. I have 2 and 11/12 plus half of a foot. Well, if I do this, we already know that 2 goes into 12 6 times. We did that last time, so this is times 6 times 6. And this is 2 and 11/12 plus 1 times 6 is 6, and this is over 12. So add these together, 2 and 11/12 plus 6/12 is going to be equal to 2 and 17/12. Well, if I simplify this, 12 goes into 17 one time, so this would be 2 plus 1, and there's 5 left over, so that would be 5/12. So this is equal to 3 and 5/12. So what I would do is I would go back now and write in 3 and 5. It's not going right. 12. So let's keep going. Look at the next problem. How much did Kiana grow from age 3 to 4? Okay, well, we're going to have to go back. We know that 3 was 3 and 5/12. And we see down here that 4 is 3 and 3/4. So let's subtract them. We have 3 and 3/4 minus 3 and 5/12. Well, how many times is 4 going to 12? 4, 8, 12. 3 times. 1, 2, 3. So we're going to do times 3 times 3. That's 3 and 9/12 minus 3 and 5/12. So through 9 minus 5 gives me 4/12, and 3 minus 3 gives me 0, so it's just 4/12. Which we know that there's 12 inches in a foot, so this is just 4 inches. Then it says use addition to determine how much she grew from 1 to 4. So let's look at all our answers. We have from 3 to 4 was 4/12. And then up here it says half from 2 to 3, so this is 1/2. Which we already saw here that turns into 6/12. So let's just write it as 6/12. 6/12 plus, if we go back to the last problem, originally we said 5/12 here from 1 to 2. So let's go over plus 5/12. So if we add it together, 4 plus 6 is 10. 10 plus 5 is 15. That's 15/12. So she grew 1 and 12, count up 13, 14, 15, so that's 3, 12, 7 inches. So that would be 1 foot and 3 inches. Last question. It says use subtraction to verify the answer that we just got here. So essentially all we're going to do there is subtract. And so the subtraction that we're doing is we're going to take 3 and 3/4 minus 2 and 1/2 because we're trying to find the total. So scroll down. So I have 3 and 3/12 minus 2 and 1/2, and I should end up with the same solution. And so we have, 3 and 3/4. That would have made it bigger. So 3 and 3/4 minus 2 and 1/2. So let's erase this. All right. So this is times 3. We already knew that because of the previous problems. Times 3. This is times 6, times 6, So this is 3, and 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 3 is 12, minus 2, and 1 times 6 is 6, 2 times 6 is 12, 9 minus 6 gives me 3/12, 3 minus 2 gives me 1. So my answer is 1 and 3/12. It's the same, so we know we got it. So you're now done with level 6. And finally, I have level 7. So let's go ahead and expand it so we can see. Okay, so we've got this trail mix recipe, and we need to figure out exactly what we are going to be doing and figuring out exactly how much of each type of seed there are. So it says draw a diagram. A says draw a diagram to represent the amount of pumpkin seeds in the mix. Then draw a diagram to represent the amount of sunflower seeds in the mix. So this is sort of elementary. So we find the pumpkin seeds, and it's 2 1/4 cups of pumpkin seeds. So we're just going to draw a diagram. We've got cups of pumpkin seeds. I'm going to use a box to represent cup, 1 cup, 2 cups, 3 cups. So 2 1/4. And then it says the sunflower seeds. So let's find sunflower seeds. Sunflower seeds. 1 2/3. So I have 1 cup and then 2/3 of a cup. 1/3, 2/3. So that's 1 2/3. This is 2 1/4. Awesome. So the question letter B. How many full cups of seeds, both pumpkin and sunflower, does the recipe require? So here I have 2 1/4 plus 1 2/3. So I have 2 1/4 plus 1 2/3. So let's go ahead and solve. We've got 4, 8, 12, and we've been working with these 12s. 3, 6, 9, 12. So 4s we did times 3, times 3, times 3. And the 3s we did times 4, times 4. This is going to be 2 3/12 plus 1 8/12 is equal to 3 plus 8 is 11/12. And then 2 plus 1 is 3. So 3 11/12. Then it says, what fraction parts of a cup of seeds, both pumpkin and sunflowers, does the recipe require? Oh, I see. So I just did the math for this whole thing. And the math for the whole thing said we had 2 wholes plus 1 whole should have been 3 whole cups. Should have been the answer. And then it has to add the fraction part. So we have, we did 1/4 plus 2/3. And we saw that that was 3/12 plus 8/12. And that's equal to 11/12. I'm just repeating the math that I did right here. So it's splitting up the steps for us. I did all the steps in one. Let's go to the next section. I'm pretty sure this next question is going to ask them to add them together. Then it says, add the fractions and simplify if possible. How many total? Okay, so that's sort of annoying even. So it really broke it down. So it said, what fraction parts? I was just supposed to list 1/4 and 2/3. And then in the next step, I was supposed to add them together. So in the next step, I was supposed to write down, oh, look, what are the fraction parts? And so I was supposed to add whatever that thing was. I was supposed to add 3/12 plus 8/12. So I don't want to do that because I already did it. So I'm going to cross this off. And then it says, how many total cups of pumpkin and sunflower seeds are in the mix? Well, again, I already did this because I added it together already because we're good like that. So pumpkin and sunflower, we already did it in the first problem, 3 11/12. So if you want to write it down, you can write 3 11/12. Then we have step 2. It says determine each amount, the total amount of nuts, macadamia nuts and almonds in the recipe. So let's look at the macadamia nuts. Macadamia nuts are 3 3/8, and almonds are 2 1/3. So we have 3 3/8 and 2 1/3. We have 3 3/8 plus 2 1/3. And so we add them together. So we've got 8, 16, 24, 32, and I've got 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24. I can stop because I'm at 24. Cool. So if you learned your multiplication tables, this would be a lot easier. Here I can do 8 times 3 and 3 times 3. So 3 times 3 is 9, so this is 3 and 9/8 plus 1 times 8 and 3 times 8. So I get 2 and 8/24. This should have been 24ths. I wrote it the wrong thing because 8 times 3 is 24. So then I have 3 plus 9. 3 plus 2 is 5. And then 9 plus 8 is 17/24. Then I have B. What's the total amount of fruit, dried cherries, and raisins in the recipe? So we need to go back. We have fruit, dried cherries, 3 3/8, and then raisins, 4 1/2. So we have 3 3/8, and we have 4 1/2. We have 3 3/8 plus 4 1/2. Well, I know that half goes into 8 times 4 times 4. 3 3/8 plus 4 4/8 is equal to 3 plus 4 is 7, and 3 plus 4 is 7/8. It's my solution. Let's keep going down. And I'm not going to do C and D. You guys can do that on your own. You get the idea. We're just adding the fractions together to find our solution.